tutorial on Seder, order. The Hebrew word for order is Seder. You might have noticed that the Hebrew prayer book, the Siddur, follows a certain order. The word Siddur refers to the set order of the liturgy that we use. Also, the word for our Passover Seder meal comes from the same Hebrew root for the word order, Seder. This Mussar lesson will help us consider ways in which we might be either overly strict or overly lenient regarding the structures of time and space in our lives. We will explore how order or disorder affect our inner balance and grounding. Do you live more randomly, or do you have a specific time for things in your life? For example, consider this. Do you have a spiritual practice such as prayer, journaling, or meditation, or chanting? And if so, do you do this at a specific time and in a specific location, or is your practice more random? We will begin by examining several texts on order, Seder, and some of the conversation points associated with the texts. We'll end our tutorial with suggestions for trying several practices from the last section of the Mussar booklet on Seder, order. We move to text 1 as our first text example. Text 1, written by Rabbi Israel Salanter, the founder of the Mussar movement, says, first a person should put one's house in order, then one's town, then the world. The conversation questions following this quote are two. The first question says, what does Rabbi Salanter mean by putting one's house in order? And then, how do you prioritize this hierarchy of needs in your life? The questions posed are general in nature, and since they do not call for deeply personal sharing or disclosure, they are great openers to get discussion started for this lesson. Remember, when you pose the questions, sit back and wait. Don't rush in to answer the question yourself, but allow participants time to mull over the question and see if one of them will answer first. The first question asks about putting one's house in order. The second question, how do we prioritize? The first question would make for a good full group sharing, while the second is perfect for a small group or chevruta, partner, or triple sharing. Text 2 follows. This is my favorite of all the texts in this Mussar booklet. Rabbi Shlomo Wolbe says, picture a pearl necklace with a small clasp. Which is more essential, the clasp or the pearls? At first glance, the pearls are more essential, but without the clasp, all the pearls would scatter, and all that would be left is the chain. Thus, the clasp seems more essential. A person is like a collection of pearls, full of potential, talents, character traits, and virtues. Seder is similar to the clasp on the necklace. Without Seder, all one's virtues and talents scatter, and one is left empty. There are two conversation questions that follow this text, and both are perfect for a small group or partner sharing, and then a regrouping to discuss in the larger group. What do you think Rabbi Wolbe means when he says that without Seder, all one's virtues and talents scatter, and one is left empty? How does this apply to your own life? And the second question, what is the clasp, the Seder, in your life that keeps your pearls, your midot, your personal talents from scattering? I have found that with questions like the ones we encounter here, you may cover less questions in the lesson because people will tend to share more and offer more of their own thoughts on the text. I suggest you do not rush to finish all the text in a lesson and either spend an extra session on the content or select ahead of time which text you will use and don't plan to use all the texts in the booklet. We turn next to text 4. Text 4 is from the book of Ecclesiastes, which is often attributed to King Solomon and is considered part of Judaism's wisdom literature tradition. It says, "There is a time for everything." Looking at the conversation questions, we see the first is more general and less personal, asking what does it mean that there is a proper time for everything, while the second calls for a personal sharing and asks participants to reflect back on their own lives over the past year and complete the phrase, "a time for." Participants are further asked what significant life events or passages have occurred for them over the past year. Finally, we turn to text 5, a text from the Psalms, from Psalm 90, verse 12, that says, "Teach us to number our days that we may get a heart of wisdom." This can be viewed as a plea to God for guidance to live an ethical and good life. The first conversation point says that time is limited, and we should live our lives with a sense of priority and purpose. If you feel that you are able to prioritize things in your life in a way that adds wisdom or meaning to your interactions with others and your accomplishments in the world. This is a good question for a chavruta or in small groups with a large group sharing afterwards. The second conversation point asks who or what is the most important priority in your life. And this does require a level of personal sharing. But as it is the last question addressed in this curriculum, people will hopefully feel comfortable about sharing. The practices section follows and offers ways that participants can work further on the midah of order or seder. Let's look at the first practice and then the fourth. I chose these two because they call for different skill sets from participants. The first is a journaling practice, to journal about your potential talents, character traits, and virtues, and how the lack of seder in your life might interfere with their full expression. Something to consider, in addition to just keeping a personal journal, is that you could share your journal entries at the next session with the large group, or even create a group journal with members in your group with selections from each participant's personal journal entries. The fourth practice asks us to spend some time putting something in order that is currently disorganized: photographs, drawer space, closet space, or tidying up loose ends, like following through on a volunteer project or sending thank you notes. Choose something that is meaningful and manageable, and that is the key to success with this midah as well as others that we will encounter throughout the curriculum. Encourage participants to try one of the several practices listed in the booklet and then report back at the next session. Wishing you much luck in your teaching of the midah of order, Seder.